Batman 119, Joshua Williamson, and several writers.
Several artists.
Several artists is what I meant. I love that Williamson, he's too lazy to write now. He's just got a team of writers to. It's like, here's the general idea. You three make it work.
That's called Amazing Spider-Man, I think, right now.
Oh, that feels harsh. I mean, they are pumping out like 3 or 4 books a month, so I mean, it's not like it's someone being lazy. So the end of the last issue was that Lex Luthor is now funding Batman Inc. and he reveals himself as such. I mean, that sums it up. He's such a prick.
The return of prick Lex. I mean, I always prefer that to evil scheme that we've gotten the last 2 or 3 years, the whole Justice League, and
this is just
Legion.
Selfish Lex.
Yeah, this is my favorite kind of Lex. So to see this one where he gets to the point where he talks about how expensive this wine is, but you're not paying for the wine, you're paying for the story. So then he dumps the wine out, and you're like, oh, you dickhead. Which perfect tone setting from Williamson here.
Yeah, and even Bruce is not that materialistic. Is like, really?
No.
Really? Can you just pour that out?
Have some respect.
At least drink it.
Yeah, so really nice. So yeah, I mean, to start out with Lex and Batman, there was a quick flashback page with Alfred talking about how this whole super steroid and cowardly thing for the criminals will work to a point, but there's going to be other types of criminals, and that sets up the idea that you've got this Lex who's out in the open, he's smarmy, he's confident,
the kind that Bruce, at that time wasn't thinking about, the ones that don't have to hide, they can just be in the light. And I was like, oh my god, that's so perfect.
Did we ever have President Lex in this continuity?
I don't think so. I think that was.
I don't think so
lost.
because, I feel like he would want to be addressed as Mr. President.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I don't think it happened, and it's one of those stories that I don't think. Obviously, we spent a lot of time over continuity in the last decade, kind of redoing, major beats. Just anyway, it's kind of what he wants, and not in an evil way, but more just he wants the power, he wants the control.
Right.
And that kind of just is a way for him to get that.
And really, from what I remember too, how they dealt with it too was it wasn't until Batman Superman that Loeb wrote to set up the things that were going to like kind of seed the Infinite Crisis that Lex was kind of just treated as the president. Like you didn't have to like him, but he was doing the job. Like he wasn't doing anything any more nefarious than other presidents have done.
Yes.
And that was kind of refreshing from what I remember. It's been 20 years, right? Like,
doesn't been that long.
It
was 2000.
Was it?
Yeah, it was. Lex as president was in 2000 because they made a whole big deal about it.
I thought it was closer to like pre-Flashpoint, or obviously still pre-Flashpoint. But I mean, I thought it was closer to the end of that decade. But fair enough.
You guys talk about this, I'll look.
So
I also thought it was later, but
Yeah. So Lex, I mean, he does this knowing Batman's going to get away. He's not really trying to capture Batman, but it's like the law in the country right now is that any Batman should be like captured or shot on sight. So he's let the police in, and they take shots at Batman, and Batman leaves a note for the detective Lady Kea, that he'll see her soon, and he's like, well, that's not creepy at all. But it cuts to like the rooftop of wherever Lex is staying. He probably owns the building, let's be honest. In Badnesia, and Bruce is there, and of course, like they couldn't talk as openly in front of Kea. Lex, for all his the shitheadiness he isn't going to just like out who Batman is in front of the public.
Everyone.
He at least keeps that to himself. And I mean, you could argue a lot of motives for why he does that beyond just doing it out of the kindness of his heart. I think my favorite part of this scene, though, and you might already mentioned the pouring of the $20 million bottle of wine, is the fact that Bruce is completely calm until Lex dares to call Dick soft. And we turn the page and he leaps up and he's about to punch the shit out of Lex. But he lets him go. And it's like, I'm taking the body of Abyss, who of course was the one that it seems to have been murdered by a lot of the Batman, to a lab that Lex owns, and you can examine him there. And of course, and Batman's out the scene, and of course he knows not to. He's like, I'm not going to trust Lex. I'm going to go and try and get to the body before it gets to the Lex lab because I don't trust what he's going to do. Like maybe he'll switch the body, maybe he'll contaminate it first. He can't just trust Lex. So then we get what I'm going to call a really, really chunky looking Batman in outfit standing on the next page. Anyone else have this problem?
He's a little bit bulky. Like,
he is. I think as well because obviously the section we just came off with Bruce and Lex that was clearly the Janet section. And
like not as bad as the Kubert stuff in Taylor's Batman Detective or the Detective. But it's up there with those proportions.
Do you know what I think it is? It's things like you can feel the fabric, like you can see the creases in the fabric of like just it stretching as opposed to being any sort of thicker material.
Yeah, but he does look wide though. Like his body looks wide.
He does. I think it's partially the stance as well that we're kind of seeing like at a weird angle.
He looks kind of stumpy, I guess, compared to normal. He looks like short and wide as opposed to like whatever Batman's.
It's just in this one panel as well.
Yeah, it's just this one panel. And well, that's the thing. I think all my favorite art in the book comes in the last chunk, which we're about to get to. And we're not quite there yet, but basically, Batman calls Detective Lady Kea and says, "Hey, you're going to have to distract the other police officers for a minute while I get a look at this body before it goes to Lex." And she kind of reluctantly goes along with it, and the body kind of Batman's out the scene because Batman does his thing. It's a fun little sequence, and he inspects the body and he's like, "Look, this isn't Abyss. Something weird's going on here because this body isn't like this is not someone who's been dead for 2 days. That's just not what this is." And there's something in his mouth. The lights go out and then things go dark and we kind of get our first proper time, and it's when the lights go out. See that page where he's like going through his different vision options and he's like infrared, night vision. This page onwards, I think the art is like it's just stupendous.
I do as well,
yeah. He tries a flashbang to see if he can see anything, and we just have this really dark, grainy.
It's that grainy effect to it. It reminds me a lot of Bermeo stuff.
A little bit. I'd say
it's great.
It's a bit like Bermeo, but I'd say that like the actual like character work is a little bit different.
Yeah, that's fair.
But like, and then so there's Batman looks basically in the darkness trying to look for this Abyss, and he's saying, who are you? Why did you fake your death? So on, so on. And Abyss like jumps out from behind him. That page is gorgeous. And the whole thing is like just it's him. They're fighting in the darkness. It's not exactly the same thing, but he says he's a creature of darkness. It was giving me flashbacks to Dark Knight Rises when Bane's like, the shadows will betray you because they belong to me. It was just kind of that vibe, a little bit.
If Batman just gave him a chair, that would have been
it. But it reminded me a little bit of Reaper from Year 2, a touch as well, because he's got like a sickle that he kind of has.
There's that.
Like
my only issue with the design is I'm not a fan of the X eyes because it reminds me of those stupid Purge masks that have been on sale every year for Halloween since that movie came out. And like,
I don't like the X, but I like the way that they have like that blue glow to them.
Yeah. I like that. I just don't like the X because all I can see is a Purge mask, and to me that makes me cringe and not like, oh, this guy is legit. But it does set him apart because I feel like if it was a skull mask, now it looks like Phantasm, right? So there's a fine line, and I don't know what to do different. I just maybe wouldn't make them X's. You make it a visor or something.
Love hearts.
That'd be terrifying.
No, I mean, I really like this scene. I think it really sells him as a really ominous threat. Like you said, the glow off the eyes and the general just kind of way that handles the lighting in these pages is great. And then the final page, final couple of pages, which is Detective Kea comes in. Batman's down in the ground. He's bleeding. He's hurt. Even this art here, as he's like crouched down, I think some of the best looking stuff as well. It's not as good as the darkness pages, but it does look really good. And then the final cliffhanger here, because she's saying, "Oh, we'll put the building in lockdown. We need to catch who did this." And the final page is the Batman. His eyes are all black. He cannot see. He says it's too dark. So I love this idea. It's because I don't know. Obviously, he is blind, but I don't know if it's specifically that he's made him blind, and it's more the idea that Abyss's powers, like, oh, he's looked into the abyss, and now he's stuck in the abyss, like visually, until either it wears off, maybe that he has to cure it with something. Who knows at this point, but I like that play on like this character's like powers, or maybe it's just something he's poisoned him with on his blade. He's just stabbed him with something.
It's possible.
He's blind as a bat.
I'm inclined to think it was before the stabbing on the blade because of that would explain the effect in general that took place.
So do you think it's almost like like Shadow from JSA, who's like turned like the entire room dark with power?
Kind of, but more target. I think it did affect him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was like a poison, more of like a mental like block, essentially. Like it's blocking.
Well, this seems biological because it went from that dead body to him, and then that's where none of the. Yeah. That's why the infrared couldn't, because it's not his gear.
It's the start of that sequence.
If it wasn't for the fact that he does get stabbed with something, I would even speculate that no one was ever physically there to fight him. But he does get slashed with a weapon, so I would maybe rule that out. But it's that sort of thing where it does feel like he gets something from this dead body that triggers something, and then maybe this like alerts Abyss to come and. I mean, it must be nearby. So it's not like he can't be traveling that far away, but maybe that's what kind of triggers Abyss's appearance, and then yada yada yada. Like, but the whole sequence is great though. It really feels like the first time like Arnold has to fight out the Predator or something like that, where it's like, oh shit, like this is like a big deal. This villain is not to be trifled with.
Yeah,
so
no, it's very interesting stuff that was set up here.
Well, because if you look, his eyes are dark after the flashbang. In almost every panel, except for where he says cut the posturing, where they very much look like, they
got the lenses in.
Yeah, but if you look there, they do a very good job at shielding his eyes the rest of the time, except for when he gets stabbed.
The only time I see anything in his eyes other than black, really, he gets stabbed, and also the moment where he's holding the batarangs in his hand.
Yeah, it
looks like you can see there, but. You could sort of take this as a representation of him just being blind the entire fight. Yeah. And then it's at the end of the scene where she's in there and the lights are on, and you realize, oh no, wait, it's not the room that's dark. It's that he can't see anything.
That was my assumption when I got to the end of this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it was a really great sequence. Yeah. I mean, I'm enjoying Detective Mode conceptually, but I can't deny that this was a fun issue with some really good art. Obviously, the art does jump around because there's like 3 or 4 artists, so there's that problem to deal with.
That last chunk, and then the stuff with Lex, I thought were really strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. The Lex stuff, that's Yannin, pretty confident on that. That's always great, and I really like how he draws his Bruce. It's really like just. Still, in the range of like he's a normal guy, but like casual, and he's obviously quite buff, but still like in the limits of feasibility for this is just a rich guy. It looks great, but then this last section just is so unique that it's much more interesting, I think.
Yeah, no, it set the villain apart. It was because it's always really hard to introduce a new villain, and sometimes it's just like, it's a new type of outfit. They've got some beef with Batman from his past or whatever. This was like, no, this is how the fights themselves are going to function differently. And you can say, is it that different from being like dosed with Scarecrow poison in some ways or whatever?
No.
And it's not really, but like it's got its own spin on it, and it made it fun to read. So
yeah.
Now he's like Daredevil. Without the sonar, which
I think it's interesting because he mentions obviously during the fight or at the start he can still see himself.
Right.
I don't know if by the end it's gotten worse that he can't even see that anymore, or if it's just a case of.
What if it has to do with the light and that it's double that Abyss can do a thing where he traps light, right? And so Bruce can see in the dark.
I think that's kind of what gave me the vibe that it's less blindness, is this idea that he can still see himself. So it's like he's in a black void.
Right.
Yeah.
But there is stuff around him. He just can't see anything else, but he can still see his own hands and stuff.
Once Abyss was gone, that effect stayed, and it's bright, right? Almost think like Obsidian when he brings the darkness around.
Yeah.
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 That's what I mean, like when we get to the end and he's saying, it's too dark. Has it gotten worse for him? Can he no longer see himself at this point? Or is it more a case of he's just it's too dark, he can't see anything else? So he'll struggle to do anything meaningful.
Yeah, I guess the best way to compare it to is like walking through a thick fog. It's just in this case the fog is blackness instead of you know, but it's only for him. No one else can see the blackness.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a fun beat.
Well, President Lex, the first President Lex reference was from August 14th, 2000. So, you guys might think it's a little bit later because the first collected President Lex didn't come out till 2003. So,
okay.
But it started in 2000.
How long did it last?
The collection only has 7 issues in it. Huh. So I think it went up until Batman Superman started, when Waller is his chief of staff. And
I really thought it was later than that.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, what are you rating Batman?
I'm gonna give it a 7.5.
Car?
I think I'll give it an 8.
I'll give it an 8 as well. It might even been bumped up to a 0.5 if it wasn't for the art being inconsistent and that chunky looking Batman on that one page really distracted me.